Hello again. Welcome. Welcome to another episode of Building Bridges, a program in which we feature the executives who have made tremendous difference in the businesses in the US. My name is Al Limai. I'm the president of a company called Logistics Solutions. Today we have president of NMSDC, the most prestigious minority council, I would say, in the world, Ms. Josette Wright. Ms. Wright, welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the chance to be here with you today.
Absolutely. So, Ms. Wright, tell us a little bit about, maybe your background and what inspired you to take the leadership role in NMSDC?
That's a really good question. I first got involved with supplier diversity back in 1987 when I was the counsel for a local phone company. And one of my clients was the purchasing department. Okay. And they needed help developing some metrics to look at their program. And at that time we had a lot of government contracts. And the purchasing department needed to track what we were doing with our minority suppliers in order to make a report to our government customers. So they came to me and asked me to help them figure out how to put these programs together. And that was my first interest in that program. And because it was such a niche area of our business, I got more and more involved because none of the other lawyers, quite frankly, understood what we were trying to do. So that was my first interest in it. I went on to become head of the purchasing department for the entire Ameritech region in the late 90s and went on the board of NMSDC for the first time and was absolutely inspired by the MBEs, or the minority-owned firms that were part of the network, as well as the corporate members who understood the value proposition of using minority suppliers in their supply chain.
So you mentioned a couple of things in the remarks, that you're an attorney by background, and you were involved in this in late 80s.
Correct.
That's quite interesting.
I think because I come from the telecommunications industry that it's not that unusual. The telecommunications industry and the automotive industry were the first two industries to really understand the value proposition of having minorities in their supply chain. And I was fortunate enough to be part of a company that was an offspring of AT&T, which started some of these programs as early as the 70s. So by the time I came along, a lot of the programs were already well established, but they were beginning to grow outside of just being government programs to other customers who wanted to use minority suppliers. And that's when I got involved, was when they started to grow beyond kind of like set-aside programs or affirmative action set-aside contracts. So we started looking at minority suppliers to be part of our corporate supply chain because we began to realize the value that they offered.
Okay, so now you're the president of NMSDC.
Correct.
Maybe tell us how long you've been in that role, and what is the overall high-level, agenda for NMSDC.
Okay, I've been the president since June of 2010. Okay. And we have been involved in a variety of things to set us on the course for our future. In the past, we have always focused on domestic opportunities for our minority suppliers, and we've been fortunate to have a global program that allows us to push more into the global arena for our Asian, Black, Hispanic, and Native American suppliers. And as a result of our affiliations with councils around the world, we are able to leverage our minority suppliers when our multinational companies decide that they want to do business in other countries.
So I will have a lot of questions on this international stuff that sounds very interesting. But overall, how does NMSDC help what you called as an MBE, minority business entity?
Well, we have a number of programs that are offered at both the regional council level as well as the national level that allow MBEs to do a number of things. Most important is to kind of assess the health of their business, and we have a program called the BizFit Challenge, which allows MBEs to go into an online tool and use that to assess their company's financial standing and stability. Things like, how do you evaluate a proposal? How do you evaluate the company that you're in? how do you determine whether or not you should take a next opportunity based upon your current resources? So tools like that are very helpful to MBEs. Local councils also offer programs around capacity building and financial management so that companies can figure out how to leverage their resources, whether they're human resources, capital resources, or other resources that they need to be more successful in corporate America.
So you said again MBE. Maybe help us understand who all belongs to that so-called MBE community.
Okay. We define MBEs in our world as Native American, Hispanic, Asian American, and Black Americans in the United States. They are all citizens of the United States, and in order to be a part of our network, we certify that the company is first owned by one of those ethnic or racial groups, and is 51% owned by, meaning 51% of the ownership of the company, 51% of the management and daily operations, and 51% of the controls. So we want to ensure our corporate members that when they deal with one of our certified MBEs, that they're truly dealing with a company that's truly minority owned and they have actual control, management, and day-to-day operations of the business.
Okay. You also mentioned, Ms. Wright, about these regional councils.
Yes.
So tell us how many are there in the U.S., how do they operate, how they are tied to national council, and what is their region charter and etc.
We have 36 regional affiliates. They are their own 501c3 corporations. They have their own board of directors. We operate with them through an affiliation agreement or a standard of affiliation, and our services are delivered through the regional council. So for example, when we talk about certification, we don't certify all of our MBEs at a national level. We have a certain class that we certify at the national level, but most certification would take place in the New York, New Jersey Council, for example, or maybe Indiana or Illinois. So there are councils across the country that will actually do the intake on an MBE, take their paperwork, help them sort through the documents that are required for certification, and then actually issue that certification for them. In addition to the certification, a lot of our regional councils do development activities as well. So they may run workshops on how to do business with a certain corporate partner, for example. They may do a workshop on financial management to help them improve their financial standing with a particular vendor or supplier. So there are a lot of different programs that the councils run based upon the needs of certified MBEs in their region.
Okay. So you talked about certification as a process.
Yes.
How long does it take, Ms. Wright, typically from the start to finish?
Well, unfortunately, it's not always typical. A lot of it depends upon the work that the MBE has done in advance, because you can imagine we have to certify certain things, so there are certain documents that are required. We require tax returns. We require information like that that allows us to verify that that MBE is truly the owner. So the more the MBE has together when they show up at the door, the quicker the process is. Some councils are busier than others because there are obviously in some communities there are more MBEs than others. So a lot of it depends upon the flow of what's going on in that particular market. A lot of our councils actually have pre-certification workshops, so if there are MBEs that can go in and figure out what's required, they can have all that information together. Once that information is all together and the file is complete, the process can run anywhere from 30 days to 6 weeks.
Okay, so it's not like 6 month to 1 year process.
No.
It's a fairly small window.
It's a small window, and the hardest part is actually making sure you have all the documents together, making sure that they're all completed, that you've got your bank statements and all of those things that are required as part of the process. And we find that those councils that have pre-certification workshops, the processes for those MBEs goes a lot faster because they know what they need and they come prepared with a full packet when they show up for certification.
So let's say an MBE is certified in a regional council, let's say. Do they get to potentially work and certified nationally?
Yes. When you are certified with NMSDC, all MBEs go into our national database. So whether you are in Chicago or Michigan or California as a certified MBE, you are in our database. So any national corporate member can find you in our database.
Now that you have these 3,500 corporations that you mentioned, how many MBs are there, and what are your immediate plans, next 6 months, 1 year plans to grow the network, if you can?
Well, right now we have 3,500 corporate members, And some of them are national members, meaning that they have identified themselves as doing business on a national or international basis. We have about 475 national members. The rest are local members that might be things like smaller companies or companies that pretty much operate in a certain regional area. We have approximately 15,000 certified MBEs in our database. And the plan for the next 5 years, because we just completed a strategic planning process, is to enhance the MBE's opportunities to do business with corporate America through more rigorous programming, through expanding our international capabilities, through expanded trade missions, and looking at new industries where MBEs can have a greater impact on supply chain.
So, Ms. Wright, you mentioned about the council, and it looks like it's doing phenomenal work.
Thank you.
I'm sure it has been recognized in the U.S., must have won a lot of awards. So just tell us about some of the most current awards that have been won by NMSDC.
Well, I would tell you that we don't do it for the awards. We have a network of 36 councils plus the national office, and when I go to their offices, I see their awards, lined up across the wall. The Chambers of Commerce recognized them for their work. But just recently, the national office was recognized by the Women's Business Development Center. They have a 26th annual Hall of Fame award luncheon, and it was hosted by the Chicago Women's Business Development Center in Chicago. And we won the award for our advocacy, continuing advocacy on behalf of minority business. And we shared that award with the Women's Business Enterprise Network, National Council, or WeBank, because we share a constituency, because they represent women and we represent minority women, and sometimes those categories overlap. And we were happy to receive that award with WeBank as a partner for our work for advancing minority business. So we were really, really proud of that.
Congratulations. That sounds like a very nice
Thank you very much.
accolade. Absolutely. So, Ms. Wright, it sounds like NMSDC as an organization has been around for quite some time. Are there any significant milestones that you can elaborate on?
Well, as a matter of fact, we are celebrating our 40th anniversary in 2012. And we spent the year highlighting our relationships between our certified MBEs and corporations. And this year at our annual dinner dance in May, we highlighted the long-standing relationships that have been built over the years between some of our key minority suppliers and our MBEs. We had 28 partnerships that we recognized at the banquet this year. And it was really interesting to look back to see some of these relations go back 15, 20 years where companies met with MBEs that long ago and continued to build and grow their relationship. So it was quite a pleasure to see those success stories come up during our 20th anniversary, or 40th anniversary. And in fact, we're going to continue that format during our May dinner dance to continue to talk about those partnerships that are adding value to the corporate supply chains as well as to the minority business community.
You raise an interesting point, Ms. Wright. You just said adding value to the corporate supply chain.
Yes.
Help us understand that. How does an MBE really add value to the supply chain?
Well, one of the things that's going on in corporate America in general is things that are not key or core to those businesses are being outsourced. And they're looking for really flexible, innovative companies that can come in and help them resolve their issues. The key to understanding that is for the certified MBE to really understand the business that they're in and to understand how what they add to that corporation's supply chain is very helpful. And I think that the successful MBEs understand their businesses, but they understand their customers' businesses even more. And when that happens, many MBEs can see opportunities to improve processes, to improve delivery models for their corporate clients. And I think many of our corporations are beginning to understand that doing business with the minority business is not just a check the box. Okay, I've done that from a compliance perspective. It's really giving them access to innovation, speed to market, cost savings that they would not otherwise have in their supply chain.
So that's interesting. You're saying MBEs actually add value to the corporate supply chain. And like you said, it's just not another tick mark, or it's not just being good citizenship either.
Correct.
So is there an economic model that has been built around so-called value added by MBE participation, Ms. Wright?
It depends on the company. Some companies have become very sophisticated on measuring the value that MBEs add to their supply chain. For example, Johnson Controls has a very sophisticated way of looking at how MBEs have added value. But if you look at a macro sense and you look at what's going on in the economy for the last several years, the downturn in the economy, what we see is that minority businesses have been very resilient. They've been able to withstand some of the downfall or downturn in the economy because they're used to operating with less funds. They're used to being innovative. They're often smaller, and so therefore they're more nimble when they're dealing with their customers. And we've seen that those companies that have gotten those major corporations through the downturn, we now see some of the companies realizing what they added during that difficult period, and now they are now giving more contracts to MBEs, which in turn is allowing our MBEs to go out and hire people and make additional investments in their companies. So on the micro level, you might have a company like a Johnson Controls or someone like a Johnson & Johnson that's a member of the $1 Billion Roundtable who has more sophisticated data around how their minority suppliers add value to their supply chain. On a macro level, we know that during the downturn, during the recession, small business and minority business was the greatest engine for growth in this economy, and our certified MBEs were a part of that.
So, Ms. Wright, you said one interesting thing, BDR, $1 Billion Roundtable. What is it all about?
The BDR is a group of select corporations that each year spend at least $1 billion with diverse suppliers, and that includes minority suppliers as well as women-owned businesses. I don't know when the BDR started. I want to say 20 years ago. And these companies are companies like AT&T, the automotive industry, Johnson & Johnson, and others. Approximately 18 companies are members of the BDR. Their processes are checked and monitored. They submit their numbers to an independent auditing firm that confirms that, in fact, they have spent $1 billion, at least $1 billion, with minority suppliers or diverse suppliers. Most of them spend significantly more than $1 billion, but they have to spend at least $1 billion to be a member of the $1 Billion Roundtable.
$1 billion. That's a huge number, Ms. Wright.
That is a huge number.
So I have a two-part question now.
Okay.
One is, what is the approximate total spend, that all the MBEs now enjoy, I should say, in the last 3-4 years?
That's a difficult question because we don't necessarily break it down that way. The numbers from the Census Bureau, which comes from the business owner survey that the Census Bureau does every 10 years, and MBDA collects and extrapolates. Minority business is, as we define it, Asian, Black, Hispanic, and Native American, represents $1 trillion in gross output. So there's a lot of money that minority firms generate for the economy. With respect to spend, it varies widely depending upon the company you're with, depending upon the industry that you're in. Manufacturing generally has more spend than service companies. On the manufacturing side, automotive tends to spend more money than companies that are not in the automotive space. So you really can't say what a particular industry will do. What we can say is over the last 4 to 5 years, NMSDC corporate members have spent $100 billion annually with minority suppliers alone. And that is a significant input into our economy, and the benefits to those minority companies allow them to hire people, make investments in their communities, be a part of the economic development and growth of a community. So $100 billion put into minority communities on an annual basis with our corporate members is wonderful. I should also point out that members of the $1 Billion Roundtable start as members of NMSDC, as national members of NMSDC.
That's phenomenal, Ms. Wright.
Thank you.
The second part of my question is, now that there is a huge potential for spend, and I hope it's growing over the years, how does an MBE, what are the what is the secret sauce of MBEs now trying to reach to corporates and getting that portion of the business?
I love that you said secret sauce because I was just recently at the AMEP program, the Advanced management education program that we run in conjunction with Northwestern University. And several of the people kept asking, what is the secret sauce? What is the secret sauce? And at the end of the class, one of the participants in the class had a box of secret sauce shipped to all the participants in that AMEP class. I'm not going to tell you what was in that secret sauce, but if you ask an MBE what was the key to them getting into the business, they will say pretty much the same thing. A lot of hard work, a lot of analysis of where they could fit into their corporate partners organization, and there's a certain amount of being in the right place with the right skills at the right time. There is no easy route to success and finding that. There is luck, but unless you have the skills and the capabilities, that luck is not going to help you. So it really is a combination of being in the right place at the right time. What we know is that MBEs that continue their involvement with the local councils and with the national organization, they have the opportunity to have that luck happen because they're in places where they're going to find buyers, where they're going to find procurement people. And so it enhances and increases their exposure. So I would say for an MBE trying to figure out what's in the secret sauce, part of it is showing up and then being ready to show your stuff to the right people at the right time.
Ms. Wright, you mentioned one interesting item, involvement. So are you saying that it's a relationship building part of the secret sauce as well?
Absolutely. If you're not involved, you're not going to have the opportunities. Certification is the beginning of that involvement. And I use this example. I have two sons that have graduated from college. They went to grade schools and they got degrees. That did not get either of them a job. What that gave them was a foundation upon which they could build their future. That meant that they had to do resumes, they had to go on interviews, they had to prepare portfolios. I would say that that is like our MBEs. They get certified, and if they stay involved and they stay engaged with the councils, they will be exposed to those opportunities that are available in the marketplace. And involvement is absolutely critical to success.
So you mentioned certification as well. Maybe elaborate a little bit more on what does certification gives an MBE.
Some of our corporate members will tell you that if you're not certified by NMSDC, they won't do business with you. So if you don't have that certification behind your name, you're not in the database, first of all, so they can't find you. And if you happen to already be in their supply chain, some of them are beginning to scrub their supply chains to say, if you're not certified by NMSDC, we can't do business with you anymore. Because remember, they want to count their spend. And they want the guarantee that when they are doing business with minority suppliers, that they are indeed minority owned. That's the whole value proposition for them.
So certification gets you a foot in the door.
Yes.
A relationship building, and you said luck sometimes.
Luck.
A combination of many.
Correct.
Have made MBEs successful.
Correct.
That's fantastic. Great story, Ms. Wright.
Thank you.
Are there any current events that you have planned that will allow MBEs to participate in the events and start these networking opportunities?
Well, in fact, every council has networking events going on all the time. They have luncheons, they have breakfast, they have meet and greets, they have matchmakers. And to get more information, you can actually go to our website, www.nmsdc.org, and under the locations bar, you can look up the council closest to you. There's a link to their website, and it will list things that are going on in that particular community. On a national level, we have our annual dinner dance May 23rd here in New York, and we will again be highlighting those key partnerships that have withstood the test of time. We also have an annual business opportunity fair in October this year in San Antonio, and that's another opportunity to meet and greet anywhere from, this year we had close to 6,000 people that came and met MBEs and had networking opportunities with corporate supply chain officers, with buyers, all sorts of people in corporate America. So anytime you have an opportunity to go to a council event, you just don't know, is that going to be the day that luck meets opportunity and preparation and skill building? And that's what we keep talking about. I think all successful business people will tell you that the key to success is being able to build a relationship. But behind that relationship has to be the capacity to get the job done.
Okay, so you mentioned capacity. In the previous comment you mentioned capacity building. So help us understand, how does an MSDC or corporates maybe help a small business to build this capacity? What is it, and how do we build it?
Well, capacity building is the ability to grow with your partner. And when you become a member of a supply chain, say you start with $1 million contract, and that's a lot of money. That's a good sized contract. But as you get more involved with that company, they may see that you have an opportunity to do more. But that means you're going to have to invest some things to make it successful. It means you may have to invest in capital. It may mean you have to get additional training. It may mean you need additional certifications like total quality management or sustainability. There are all sorts of things that a company may say would be important if you want to grow. And that capacity building process is taking your current capacity state and growing it to the next level so you can continue to grow, not just with that particular customer, but with other corporate suppliers as well, corporate customers as well.
So in this capacity building, which looks like a very interesting process, are there any formal programs
Yes.
that NMSDC offers?
Yes.
So tell us more.
Well, there are several, but the one that is most significant is our Centers of Excellence. And the Centers of Excellence is a program that is located in the regions, and within a particular region, corporate members and MBEs come together for an 18-month period of working together to figure out how they can work together more efficiently and more profitably. And what really is wonderful about the program is those MBEs get to expose to other corporations that they may not currently work with, but because of this close working relationship, they get exposed to other corporations, and other corporations get exposure to other MBEs. Part of capacity building is just growth, having enough contracts and growing in your ability to deliver on those contracts. So the more contracts you have, the more opportunities you have to enhance your skill set. In New York, New Jersey, they are launching their third Centers of Excellence program. It's the first council in the country to actually be on their third COE module. So we're really excited to see what comes out of that. What we know is that companies that have come through the Centers of Excellence program, both the corporations and the MBEs cite significant growth in business opportunities and enhanced operating abilities together.
Wow, that's a very interesting
Yes.
concept.
Yes.
So it helps MBE that somebody is guiding them
Correct.
during the process.
Correct.
Help build relationships.
Yes.
Looks like help in financing.
Yes.
Help networking. That's a great initiative, Ms. Wright.
It's a wonderful program, and what we like about the program is we actually have the metrics. So we test before we go in on a number of different dimensions, then we test when we come out, and then we follow up to see how are they doing a year after participating in Centers of Excellence. So we are hoping to expand the Centers of Excellence next year so that all councils are actually participating in the Centers of Excellence module.
Now, going back to your previous comment of international,
Somehow I knew you were not going to let me forget that.
because that's very interesting. As everybody knows, the whole world is becoming global.
Correct.
So, how can an MBE who is currently working with a corporation and certified by an MSDC get guidance, go with the tell us more about your international strategy.
Well, there's a couple things. Let me tell you first about where we are internationally. We have international affiliates in the UK and Canada, South Africa, China, and Australia. And starting this year, we're going to be getting to look into affiliations with Mexico and India. And so this is the first time that we've really taken on a new potential opportunity, and we're really looking very closely at what we can do in those countries. I think the key to getting involved is to go to a trade mission. We have a trade mission coming up in June to South Africa. We usually do 1 or 2 trade missions a year. They are open to corporate members and they're open to MBEs. Most of our MBEs find out about it through a corporate member that they've worked with that says, I'm going on this trade mission, would you like to accompany me? Some of our MBEs go just because, for example, they want to do business in China. And they come along and they learn a lot about doing business in China. The trade mission involves meeting local business leaders. It also involves meeting local government officials who are often very involved in these sorts of programs, and then matchmakers. We do a matchmaker as part of every trade mission.
So, Ms. Wright, it looks like you said there is MBEs do help in the adding value in supply chain.
Correct.
In the tough economic times, give us your perspective of how MBEs overall have added a value to the overall economy, not just for corporates.
The engine for growth during the recent downturn in the economy was small business and minority business. And to the extent that they were able to keep employees employed, it really helped the economy. I think that you can't underestimate the impact of $1 trillion worth of value and revenue being generated by a sector of the economy. I think that as we come out of this downturn and minority businesses are able to expand and grow their business, it's all upside from an economic perspective. As the demographics of our country changes, it will become the foundation of the growth of our country in the future. So to the extent that we can leverage and harness the talent, the economic strength of our minority business community, the stronger our economy will be overall. And one of the things we want to do at NMSDC is to make sure that our minority suppliers continue to be a major player in driving economic growth for our country.
So, Ms. Wright, you mentioned word demographics. Tell us more about how is the demographics going to change. That's already. How does that? What is going to change to what time frame, and how will it impact the buying decisions or overall economics?
It's interesting because demographers have been studying the changes in demographics. That's what they do all the time. But you will recall there have been repeated articles in the newspapers about how the growth in the minority population is going to change the way we live, we work, and we play. And just by looking at the numbers from the U.S. Census Bureau, they're showing that somewhere in the next 20 years, the number of minority people in this country will be larger than the number of non-minority people in this country. Now, if you think about that from an economic perspective, and you want growth in your country, and you want growth in your market opportunities, you've got to begin to build the platform upon which those minority communities can grow. And the one way a minority community can grow is through economic development, through business. And so as we think about positioning minority business for the next 25 or 30 years, we have to be prepared to take on what's going to be required for our economy to grow as a country. The demographics are also impacting the decision makers who make the choices about who is going to be doing business with corporate America. When I started as chief of procurement for Ameritech in 1996, there were fewer than 5 of us that were minorities, identified as minorities at that period of time. We now have chief purchasing officers who are minority and women in excess of 12 people, and we have a funnel that is full of other minorities coming behind them. So the decision maker is going to look different than he or she did 15 or 20 years ago, and those people are going to be very concerned about making sure that their supply chains stay inclusive. So I think no matter where you look at this issue of diversity, the changing demographics in our country are going to change the way we do business. If you are a corporate member and you want to do business, you're going to have to figure out how do you do business with the minority community. It's going to become a growing part of the economy. So all of the things that go into attracting a market, attracting a customer, you're going to have to figure out how to attract a new market and a new customer.
So what I hear you say is the changing demographics is going to change the overall landscape.
Correct.
Not only in the MBE community, but on the corporate side.
Correct.
And the consumer side.
And the consumer side.
That's
correct.
And that you think that'll, the international strategy that you have, you think that's going to in any way, cross in any way?
It'll be interesting because we don't really look at international spend quite the same way, because there's 2 ways to look at it. One is when we have a domestic corporation that wants to do business internationally and they want to take one of our MBEs as part of that. So that's one thing that we're looking at. In some cases, our corporate members want to do business in country and they have local content requirements, and so they want to use minority business as that's defined in that country, so that impacts the economic development in that country. The other piece of it is some of our MBEs are going because they themselves have opportunities. I went on a business mission to China several years ago, and we had a certified MBE that wanted to do manufacturing in China. And while we were there, was able to secure facilities, to look for workforce, and he now operates in China, and he can serve his Southeast Asian customers through China as opposed to the cost associated with doing it in the U.S. So there are many ways that MBEs, whether they're defined as MBEs in this country or MBEs in other countries, are impacting their local economies.
Very interesting. So are there any partnerships or joint venture opportunities that you suggest for an MBE in the U.S. to either work here or overseas?
Well, I would say that stay tuned to the NMSDC website, because our global missions are published on our website. There's a link to the Global Link program. You can contact your local council. They often have information about what is going on in Global Link as well. If you know someone in one of the Global Link affiliates, they also have websites that will tell them about things that are going on in country. So if you're interested in going to Australia, I know that they're planning a business mission to one of the cities in Australia. So it really is about, again, using the web and our website to figure out what opportunities would appeal to you. Because we don't necessarily know all of them. We know the missions that we run, but for every mission we run, those councils are also doing their own networking and matchmaking opportunities. In those areas where you are from a country, you're in the U.S., for example, and you're of Indian origin, if you have contacts in India, use the local chambers of commerce, use chamber of commerce organizations to figure out how do you engage those communities. We have a good working relationship with the U.S. Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, and I know they're trying to work on some programs in Mexico. That would be a great way to get information about doing business in Mexico or in other Latin American countries.
So, Ms. Wright, this session and the description and the agenda that you have for the NMSDC sounds very exciting. It's phenomenal.
Thank you.
It looks like for an MBE, there are opportunities within U.S., outside U.S.
Correct.
You have a CA mentorship program. Your corporates are willing to help.
Correct.
So you have any final thoughts for the viewers, Ms. Wright?
Well, first of all, thank you very much for having me today. I've really enjoyed talking with you and talking about the things that are going on at NMSDC. And for our viewers, I would like to encourage you, if you have a business, you're interested in doing business with corporate America, get certified by your council, get involved with your councils. Recent studies that we've done have shown that those councils, those MBEs that have stayed involved with the councils, they last longer, they have better business opportunities. But I really say this is a partnership. It's a partnership between NMSDC, the regional councils, the MBEs, and the corporation. And together we provide a network of support that allows everybody in that network to get what they need to be successful.
That's a phenomenal message, Ms. Wright.
Thank you.
So viewers, the message cannot be more clear. Please visit www.nmsdc.org. Like Ms. Wright said, stay involved, and there are lots of opportunities for your businesses. Ms. Wright, thank you very much. It's my pleasure to have you on the show.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Good luck to you.